Samia utalipa damu. Mama Samia kokota uliko. Damu hii utalipa.
And I get there and the first order is take off your clothes.
A Ugandan lawyer and a Kenyan activist, both champions of justice, traveled to Tanzania to stand in solidarity with an opposition leader. What they faced instead is a nightmare so vile it could curdle blood.
Inafuata sheria na inawalinda raia wake, lakini inaonekana wazi hawa raia wa Kristo, hawa raia wa kanisa na ufufuo na uzima wanaporwa haki yao ya kuabudu katika nchi yao.
Tanzania on trial, a nation betrayed by power. In the heart of East Africa, where Mount Kilimanjaro towers over fertile plains, a darker mountain is rising, one built not of earth, but of silence, suppression, and systemic abuse.
And I get there and the first order is take off your clothes.
A Ugandan lawyer and a Kenyan activist, both champions of justice, traveled to Tanzania to stand in solidarity with an opposition leader. What they faced instead is a nightmare so vile it could curdle blood. The question on everyone's lips: did Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu, a leader who stepped into power under a cloud of controversy, greenlight these atrocities? This will make your stomach churn and your heart race with righteous anger. Agatha Atuhaire, a fierce Ugandan lawyer and activist, arrived in Dar es Salaam to support Tundu Lissu, a Tanzanian opposition leader charged with treason. What she got was a welcome straight from a horror show. Detained on Monday, Agatha recounts a scene that's nothing short of barbaric. When she got there, the first order was to strip, she said, her voice trembling. Before she could, someone slammed her on the back. Another ripped off her clothes. They threw her to the ground, handcuffed her, and beat her feet until she screamed.
And I get there and the first order is take off your clothes. Before you do anything, there's one who hits me with something on the back, and there's one who violently takes off all my clothes. They take off all my clothes, they throw me down, they handcuff me. You will see some of they handcuff me, but they tried to put a sweater before the handcuffs. So I think the injuries here would have been worse, but there's this, then there is this.
But it gets worse, far worse. Agatha alleges a violation so heinous, it's hard to say out aloud. They shoved something. It was rape, by all standards, she revealed. Her words a dagger to the conscience.
There's one hitting under my feet so badly. The pain was too much. And there's one shoving something in my so that is rape by all standards.
Gagged, her screams muffled by the blaring volume of a car radio, she was left to writhe in agony, abandoned like discarded cargo at the Mutukula border between Tanzania and Uganda.
This is not the Tanzania the world once admired for peace and hospitality. This is a Tanzania under siege, not from foreign enemies, but from those entrusted to protect it. Over the last several years, Tanzania's government has steadily shifted from a democratic facade to what critics now call a political machine of repression, targeting opposition leaders, religious institutions, indigenous communities, and free expression.
Tanzanian riot police have detained a number of protesting supporters of an arrested opposition leader. It comes as the Freedom Mbowe faces charges of terrorism, financing, and conspiracy. Mbowe and other officials from the main opposition party, Chadema, were arrested last month ahead of a planned conference to demand constitutional reforms. The court hearing of the 59-year-old's case has been postponed due to internet.
A democracy in disguise. The presidency of Samia Suluhu Hassan began with cautious optimism. Following the death of the authoritarian John Magufuli in 2021, the world hoped that Samia would lead with reform and dignity. But as 2025 elections approach, that hope has dimmed. Assassination attempt, Lissu returned from exile to lead the No Reforms, No Election campaign, demanding transparency, electoral reform, and accountability. But on April 9, 2025, Lissu was violently arrested at a rally in Mbinga. The police opened fire on peaceful crowds before abducting him and transporting him over 1,000 kilometers to Dar es Salaam. There, he was charged with treason, cybercrime, and incitement, without any credible evidence. Lissu was denied access to lawyers, detained among death row inmates, and ultimately forced to represent himself in court.
The feet, I am screaming so hard, and I am screaming, and they bring something to cover my mouth. They increase the volume of the car. At first I didn't know what that was for, but of course I am scared until I started hearing Boniface scream. So they had increased the volume so that I don't hear him. But the pain they were inflicting on him was too much.
Now, the U.S. Bureau of African Affairs has expressed deep concern over Tanzania's handling of the activists, citing reports of arbitrary arrests, detentions, and restrictions on free speech. In a strongly worded statement, the U.S. called for an immediate probe into alleged human rights abuses, emphasizing that Tanzanian authorities must ensure accountability and uphold democratic principles. The statement highlighted specific cases of activists facing harassment and imprisonment, urging the Tanzanian government to respect international human rights standards and protect freedom of expression. In response, Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan firmly rejected the U.S. demands, asserting that her government will not tolerate external interference in its domestic affairs. She defended Tanzania's sovereignty, stating that the country is committed to addressing internal matters independently while maintaining its own legal and cultural framework. Suluhu emphasized that Tanzania remains open to dialogue, but will not be pressured by foreign powers to alter its governance policies. Hours before Agatha's release, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi was dumped at the Horohoro border post, battered and broken. Like Agatha, he'd come to support Tundu Lissu only to be snatched by Tanzanian authorities. They were tortured together, Boniface posted on X, his words raw with pain. They made us to strip, crawl, and wash of blood. His screams echoed Agatha's, drowned out by the same cruel tactic, a car radio cranked to mask their suffering. Boniface Mwangi's story mirrors Agatha's, painting a grim picture of a coordinated assault on dissent. The outrage is deafening. Activists across East Africa are pointing fingers at President Samia Suluhu, whose rise to power after John Magufuli's sudden death in 2021 promised reform but now reeks of repression. Those directing these crimes answer to Suluhu.
We demand that the people who subjected them to this torture are immediately held accountable.
X are ablaze with some alleging Suluhu sanctioned sexual assault and torture, calling her a super abductor who's lost all moral compass. Hussein Khalid, CEO of Vocal Africa, didn't mince words.
Tuseme hatutakubali udhalimu kukita mizizi katika maeneo ya Afrika Mashariki.
Physical abuse is visible, but when it comes to the emotion and trauma, this is something that they are going to carry for the rest of their lives and for years to come.
The East African community was built on a dream-free movement, shared values, and justice for all. But Suluhu's actions are tearing that dream apart, growing louder. Human rights groups are threatening to sue Tanzania. Former Justice Minister Martha Karua has even written a letter to the African Union demanding action against Tanzanian government. Yet Suluhu's government stays silent, refusing to comment on the torture allegations. Her only public words, a chilling warning to foreign activists not to meddle in Tanzania's affairs. A statement that has aged like milk in the sun. As elections loom in 2025, the world watches a president, once hailed as a reformer, slide into the shadows of her predecessor's iron fist. Will the African Union act? Or will this be another chapter of impunity in East Africa's story? Agatha Atuhaire and Boniface Mwangi survived, but their scars, physical and emotional, tell a story of betrayal. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu stands at a crossroads. Will she own up to these atrocities or dig in her heels? For Kenyans, Ugandans, and all who cherish freedom in East Africa, this isn't just a Tanzanian problem. It is an East Africa problem. What do you think about this president? Share your thoughts. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Bushabi Jr.
To what critics now call a political machine of repression, targeting opposition leaders, religious institutions, indigenous communities, and free expression. A democracy in disguise. Golugwa were detained for simply attempting to attend political events abroad. Several activists have vanished without a trace. Others, like Ali Kibao, were found dead, mutilated, doused in acid, signs of state torture etched into their flesh. Even international observers like Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan journalist Agatha Atuhaire were abducted, beaten, and dumped at the border in May 2025 after attending Lissu's trial. Crucifying the church, the Gwajima crackdown. In June 2025, the government revoked legal status for over 2,000 churches belonging to Ufufuo na Uzima Ministries, led by Bishop Josephat Gwajima. Accused of political involvement and spiritual manipulation, Gwajima's churches were shut overnight, and his headquarters raided with armed soldiers. The real offense? Gwajima's growing popularity and vocal criticism of government overreach. Religious freedom, a constitutional right, has been gutted. Faith is now policed. Preachers are watched, and churches are silenced, one sermon at a time. The Maasai are being erased. Far from the cities, another war is being waged. In the Ngorongoro Conservation Area, the Maasai people, custodians of the land for centuries, are being forcibly evicted under the guise of environmental conservation. But this is not conservation. This is colonization, by government decree. Tens of thousands of Maasai have been displaced without compensation. Schools and clinics have been shut down, voter registration blocked, livestock confiscated, and rangers beat those who resist. This is ethnic cleansing through paperwork and rifles, all in the name of profit from tourism and luxury safaris. Torture, rape, and secret killings. Behind closed prison doors, horrific abuse continues. Survivors report rape, beatings, and torture at the hands of police and security agents. Secret prisons, often in military zones, are used to detain activists and extract confessions under duress. Disappearances are routine. Families mourn in silence, knowing that even speaking out invites further danger. A nation that once stood for ujamaa, togetherness, has become a nation where trust is treason and truth is a death sentence. Money, power, and control. What drives this dissent? The answers are bitterly simple: power, money, and control. Meanwhile, the state narrative is carefully managed through propaganda, surveillance, and censorship of media. International human rights bodies must continue to apply pressure and enforce sanctions where necessary. Citizens must be protected from unlawful arrest, torture, and eviction. Freedom of religion, assembly, and speech must be restored. Most urgently, the 2025 elections must be conducted freely, transparently, and peacefully. When governments become gods, the people become prey. Let the cry of the oppressed be heard beyond borders. Let justice roll down like waters. Let Tanzania rise again, not with guns, but with truth.
Inafuata sheria na inawalinda raia wake. Lakini inaonekana wazi hawa raia wa Kristo, hawa raia wa kanisa na ufufuo na uzima wanaporwa haki yao ya kuabudu katika nchi yao.
In Tanzania, the government has suspended the online operations of a leading newspaper. This after it released advertising clips featuring the president and referencing recent abductions and killings of dissidents. The Citizen, one of the most influential English language papers, said its online publications had been suspended for 30 days by the Tanzania Communications Regulatory Authority. One of the clips released online earlier this week by The Citizen showed President Samia Suluhu Hassan watching news clips of dissidents and victims of state repression. We want to show you that video in full so you can make up your own mind.
Political status of our country is not good at all. First of all, we as the opposing party, we're in a funeral. Our leader has been kidnapped and murdered violently.
I have a request to make to the president. Please, don't ignore.
Someone who lives different from here has more peace than I do. I live a life of fear.
Whether dead or alive.
The situation keeps getting tougher for me.
And up I do now. Whenever I think about my child, I just cry. I'm frustrated. It has been a long time, but I still can't forget. And that's the great danger I see.
If only I had buried my child, I would have known it was God's plan, and I would have accepted.
I want to see my child.
Know the names of the people who kidnapped me in their ranks.
I don't know how my life is going to be.
Our leaders have been kidnapped at different times.
Don't ignore.
I just cry, frustrated. It has been a long time.
For many, that video might look like normal political commentary, but not for the government of President Samia Suluhu Hassan. This is just the latest development in what the opposition says is an ongoing government crackdown. Several of its members were arrested last week. Police say they stepped in to stop illegal anti-government protests in the commercial capital Dar es Salaam. One of the leading figures, Tundu Lissu, is suing the government. He says President Hassan is returning to the authoritarian practices of her predecessor, John Magufuli. In 2021, when she took office, there was initial hope in political and human rights circles that her government would bring more openness and democracy.
The moment police jump into action. The opposition says this is the latest example of the government's crackdown on dissent, and they accuse the security forces of kidnapping and killing their members. One leading opposition figure says the pattern of repression goes back years. He plans to sue the government after evidence emerged that he says proves officials colluded with the telecoms company in a plot to kill him.
What was done to me is an act of terrorism. The attack on me has deeply hurt me because I was left disabled for life. I cannot wear any shoes other than the type I am wearing now. I cannot walk properly. I walk with a bullet in my back. My body is full of metal.
In 2017, unknown gunmen shot Lissu 16 times. He survived and went into exile. He's now returned to the country and campaigned in the upcoming local elections. This just after another opposition leader was abducted and found dead in early September. President Hassan has called for an investigation into the killing. Many in Tanzania have little faith.
On the line now is Tanzanian opposition figure Tundu Lissu, who joins us from Dar es Salaam. Tundu Lissu, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
I want to start by asking you to take us back to the 7th of September 2017, just moments after you realized you might be under attack. What went through your mind?
Michael, I did not even have time to think because the gunmen had been following me from Parliament to my residence. I didn't know they were after my life. I thought they were just ordinary police officers who had arrested me 8 times in the previous year. So I did not have any clue about the fact that I was about to be attacked. And when they came out of their vehicle with automatic rifles, I simply did not have time to think about what was going on. It was just pandemonium and gunfire and all that terrible noise. So I didn't really have time to think.
Why are you pursuing legal action against the Tanzanian government and Tigo, the telecommunications company, of course? In other words, what do you hope to get out of this, both for yourself and the country?
We have not started the legal proceedings as yet. What I have done is to instruct my lawyers in London to explore the possibilities of legal action in British courts or in American or European courts. And this is based on the recent revelations in the British courts that Tigo and its parent company, Millicom, had provided the government of Tanzania with live data or location and my electronic data, which enabled the government and its gunmen to track me down from Parliament to my residence and try and kill me. So if my lawyers decide that we are going to go to court in Europe or in North America as I wish, the intention would be not only to get justice for myself, but also to get to the bottom of the assassination attempt. We would like to know who did what, who demanded that I be tracked electronically by Millicom and its Tanzanian subsidiary, on whose instructions, who provided the information from Tigo, who got the information, who passed it on to the gunmen. We want to get to the bottom of this. And the reason is that for the past 7 years, the government of Tanzania has refused, consistently and vehemently refused to investigate the matter. And therefore, if we are to get to the bottom of it, we must get it. We will have to get it through the use of British or American courts.
Why don't you believe you can get justice through that evidence in Tanzanian courts?
Tanzania, it is simply impossible. The government of Tanzania has refused to investigate it. The Tanzanian courts, to use the same testimony that was given in British courts, Tanzanian courts are not independent. They are under the thumb of the executive, of the president who appoints all the judges. And Tanzanian courts are incapable of dealing with this matter because of that, because they lack the necessary independence to deal with a major case involving a major opposition figure like this particular case. And we are pursuing it we're going to pursue it in British or North American courts precisely because there is no other way of getting justice in the courts in Tanzania.
Sir, you are well aware, of course, that under the new administration, there have been crackdowns, arrests, disappearances, and one senior member of your party was abducted, allegedly killed, and doused in acid, all in recent months. Is Tanzania a free country?
Tanzania is not a free country. The late Ali Kibao was actually abducted about 300-400 meters from my residence, from where I am right now, pulled out of the bus, which was stopped right in the middle of a highway, bundled into a car that is used by intelligence and security people in this country, and brutally tortured before being murdered and doused in acid. So a country which commits or tolerates actions of this nature cannot by any standard be described as a free country.
Why do you think no one was held accountable for your 2017 assassination attempt? And do you believe your legal action might change that?
The reason that no one has been held accountable for the attack is because the people who should have taken action to investigate and punish those who did it are the people who authorized it. You see, 2 hours before I was attacked, the then President John Pombe Magufuli, stated on live national television that those who opposed his regime's economic policies did not deserve to live. And 2 hours later, I was nearly murdered. So it came directly from the president. And now we know that for the previous 2 weeks, I was under constant surveillance, electronically and through human intelligence. And so it is very clear that those who perpetrated this act had the direct orders of the president, and they cannot, of course, investigate themselves because they are still in power.
You appear, sir, to be talking to us quite freely. I'm curious, are you safe in Tanzania?
No, I'm not. I'm not safe. Tanzania is not a safe country. And the proof of that assertion is the murder of Mr. Ali Kibao only last month.
And yet you chose to go back to and yet you chose to go back to Tanzania, and you are still there now.
Yes, I did. I believe that this murderous tyranny has to be faced. It has to be opposed. It has to be resisted. And doing it from exile is mighty difficult. And I can tell you that for 5 years that I was in exile, it was very difficult to organize resistance on a national scale against this tyranny. So I'm here because no one is safe. I'm not safe, and millions of Tanzanians are not safe. And precisely because of that, we have to organize resistance in order to deal with this tyranny.
Tanzanian opposition figure Tundu Lissu, many thanks, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
We should mention we invited Tanzania's government spokesperson to respond to Mr. Lissu's allegations, but we received no response.